Hello, everyone. If you are joining me for the live stream tonight, you are in for a treat. If you like to hear me rant, why? Tonight is the night of rants. I have multiple questions for the office hours, and I am going to answer the questions. I actually have a PowerPoint. Like, that's how much of a rant there is tonight. This is how you know we're here for it tonight. I have Professor McGonagall's wand. If I bring out the wand, friends, it's serious. So I have 4 different questions to answer. Obviously, if you are participating live, the benefit to you is that you can also ask questions in the chat in the live stream. And so please feel free to throw in your comments there. I love to see those. And I'm going to start. I've saved the biggest, longest one for last, but let's get started with the first one. I think it's possible that I actually answered this question in a previous live stream and that I just didn't delete it from my live stream questions list. If so, here's the answer again. If not, I need like whatever vitamins you take to help your memory. That would be omega-3 fatty acids, actually. So like fish oil supplement. Okay, so here's the question. The question is, my GT child is in 7th grade. She just started middle school during the pandemic. She is in GT and pre-AP classes, and I just realized how poorly prepared she will be when it comes to study habits. She can literally retake any test or assignment, maybe not a summative test, for full credit. For full credit. I can't even. Okay. For example, this last week, she made a 70 on her history test, and she said, no big deal. She can make it up. She got to go back in to make a 100. I asked her if she studied. She said no. Well, of course she didn't study. She's GT. She knows she can take the whole thing again. Who in their right mind would study? But that's not even really the problem to me. Here's what I think about you. You know I'm going to say what I think, don't you? I know. Okay. So, for those of you who are just joining office hours for the very first time, these live streams I do once a month theoretically are for people who are taking my courses and might have questions, but anyone can send in questions and I will answer them. Anybody can participate and I will answer. And by answer, usually I mean give an informed, intelligent opinion about something. Sometimes that informed, intelligent opinion is accompanied by ranting, and that would be what's going on tonight. In fact, tonight actually I have 2 wands. I've got Hermione and I've got McGonagall. And seriously, if it gets any more serious, I'm pulling down Luna Lovegood as well. So here's what we've got tonight. Here's what my answer is to this first question. This comes up. This is a thing now, isn't it? This is a thing. Allowing retakes. And doesn't it sound so nice? Doesn't it sound like we have our priorities right? Like we're not so focused on grades. We're going to worry more about whether kids learn and giving chances. And we're going to have a kinder, gentler type of school. It sounds great, doesn't it? It's not great. And here's why. Oh, let me finish her question. At first, I thought this was something they're doing to coddle kids after the pandemic. But after speaking with other friends, this has been going on for a long time in middle and high school. Now, I understand that grades aren't everything that matter, but what they're doing terrifies me because my daughter isn't taking deadlines seriously and not ever worrying about studying. How can she be prepared for real life when her attitude is, man, I'll just retake it for 100? Anyway, what are your thoughts? Now, famous last question, right? What are your thoughts, Lisa? You know how I had to give my opinion, people. Because as a GT teacher and a GT parent, this drives me bananas. Oh, friend, it's driving me bananas too. Okay, here's my takeaway. If assessment is only formative, so let's say that they're saying, let's say that the teacher's doing this, or the school or the school district doing this. Let's say their argument is, our testing is only formative. So we just want kids to learn from the testing experience and to gauge their learning and to understand how well they acquired what they learned. Well, I still think this is poor pedagogy. Why? Well, because what you're saying is we have zero faith that you actually learned anything. And because of that, we're going to let you retake the test. I think if you really drill down to this, it's far less about the student having a good experience and more about the school not having high failure rates, more about not getting parent complaints about kids doing badly. I think this is a way to make up for poor quality instruction. Why do I say that? Because if a kid can, like, even if a kid is learning strongly, even if they didn't study, they should be able to do better than that, especially a gifted kid who is going to learn more quickly, right? And usually, often, I won't say usually, but I will say often, the paradigm with gifted kids is they don't necessarily believe in the idea of daily work, and then they pull it out for the assessment. So to have this kid get a 70 and not care, that tells me something's going on here, right? The instruction itself is problematic. That tells me that they are focusing too much on what they're putting into students and not enough on what they're pulling out. They're not using good pedagogy in the form of retrieval practice and spaced repetition. So we need, I've talked about this and I train about this, and anyway, retrieval practice is the science of learning that says what you try to pull out is just as important as what you try to put in. Our problem is if we are only pulling out during tests, then that's poor quality instruction. It is misaligned with the science of learning. We need to be doing frequent low stakes quizzes. And when we do that, then these bigger tests, it's kind of like if you watch your pennies, your dollars take care of themselves. When you do these frequent low stakes quizzing, and by frequent, I mean every class period, every other class period, couple questions, 3 questions, blank index card, tons and tons of ideas for retrieval. But the idea is if you focus on retrieving frequently built into the class, then you don't have to worry so much about these bigger assessments because you've already built that. This is telling me that the pedagogical foundation here is lacking. It is built on sand. The low scores are revealing poor learning, not just poor studying. Like this parent rightly concerned that the child isn't learning how to study. That actually concerns me less, only because I've said this before. If you're gifted, you can Google how to study. I mean, if you want really good advice on studying, I would read Cal Newport's book on studying. Maybe Ali Abdaal has some old stuff from back when he was in medical school on YouTube that's good. But this is just a fake feel-good moment where everybody can nobody has their feelings hurt. The teacher doesn't feel bad if the student's class average is poor because they can just retake it. The teacher has this, well, they may have failed the test, but they were allowed to come in and retake it. So if they still failed, that's all on them. No, friend, if you're not doing retrieval practice in class, it's on you too, right? So that's problematic. It's a fake feel-good moment. The kid fakely feels good that they didn't that they can still go in and get a 100, which is insane. I would never allow that. I would never allow that. I would allow, so as a separate issue, what would I do for test corrections? I know I have talked about this before, but at the risk of repeating myself, I would allow test corrections to passing and then half credit after that. So meaning that like the most a kid could ever get would be an 85. Because the problem is that then it isn't even just, are we preparing kids for the future life, right? Although you can make that argument because a mortgage company will take your payment late, but they often charge you a late fee, right? And so if we're going to die on the hill of we need to prepare kids for real life as opposed to the alternative universe that is school, then we can make the argument there needs to be some kind of penalty for not being ready when ready was ready, right? Number 2 is this is problematic for teachers because it creates a lot of extra work. And I feel like teachers are, almost every teacher I know says that they're overwhelmed. So if we're going to say that we're overwhelmed and we don't have time for stuff, then why are we giving kids, why are we allowing kids to retake and resubmit and turn stuff in until the dying breath of the grading period? Like That just makes no sense. It's completely out of alignment with teaching good study habits and executive functioning. Like, part of executive functioning is managing your time and your materials. And we're like, we lament that children don't have good executive function skills, and then we encourage practices that diminish executive function. It doesn't make any sense. So this is a fake feel-good moment, and at its center is not really about kids at all, but is truly just about school districts wanting to have higher passing rates. So, and that's my opinion, which, as you know, I hate to give. So my answer to this is poor pedagogy. I would be concerned less about the fact that the kid's not learning how to study, more about the fact that the child isn't learning. That would be my thing. Remember, you are welcome to put your comments in the chat. All right, here's what I say. Instead of that, focus on retrieval practice. You can go to retrievalpractice.org. You can read the book, Small Teaching. You can, like, there's so many power teaching. What's it called? I have it right here. Where is it? I don't know where I put it. It's called Power Teaching, though. All right, and then I say retakes only to get to passing. Like, corrections should be for learning, not grades. I mean, if we're really focused on learning, which of course we're not, or we wouldn't be doing this stupid thing anyway. But if we are focused on learning, then corrections should be done for learning, not for a grade. I mean, if what we're saying is grades don't matter, oh my gosh, it's already 12 minutes in and I'm only on question 1 and there are 4 and the last one is like so big. So let's move here. All right. Number 2, paying attention. Question for paying attention. This question was not actually emailed to me. This question arose when I was interviewing a student named Jade for my Interview with a Gifted Kid series. The interview was so long, it is turning into 4 articles on the website. And that is why, even though I interviewed her last month, it is still not available. However, one of the things that got mentioned in the interview, and I conduct these interviews now on Zoom, and I record them and then transcribe them. And so the mom was there, which is common and super fun. And this is what the mom said, that the student, Jade, was having trouble focusing on the teacher. And Jade is a pseudonym. That's not her actual name. Has trouble focusing on the teacher, and then she misses directions. And she has a hard time just even advocating herself because there's an attitude from the teacher of, well, you should have been listening. Like, I shouldn't have to tell you the directions again because you should have paid attention the first time. Okay, now look, as a teacher, I totally sympathize with this. You guys can't see it, but I'm like waving my McGonagall wand around. You know what? Let me give you the backstory on this Professor McGonagall wand. I was at Universal Studios in Orlando and in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And I already owned 2 wands. I owned Hermione's wand and Luna Lovegood because I am a Ravenclaw. And well, I'm kind of a hat style of a Ravenclaw and the Slytherin, but I don't like to embrace the Slytherin side of myself, although I do in the live stream. Do I not? Anyway, I was in the wand store and I said to them, I'm not going to tell you anything really about myself, but if you can match me with a wand that you think would be good for me, I will buy it. And the lady was looking at me and talking to me. She's like, you feel like a teacher. I think you deserve the Professor McGonagall wand. Seriously. I was like, okay, I have to have it. I mean, if you call that, right? So here I am with McGonagall. Here's the thing. As a teacher, I totally sympathize with this. No teacher, it is so frustrating when you give instructions and then you pass stuff out and then thing you hear is, I don't get it. What am I supposed to do? I don't know what's going on. That is so frustrating. Okay. But here's what I would also say. So yes, teachers, I'm on your side for that. However, here's what I think. A lot of times teachers go on and on and on, and they expect students to pay attention for 15 minutes to something that could have been explained to them in 3 seconds. So if you are on my email list, which you probably are, you wouldn't be in this live stream, but if you're on my email list, you know that at the top of the email list, I have a TLDR, too long, didn't read. And I just put like what the email is about. That way, if people don't want to read the whole email, they just want the links, right? They just want the download, or they just want the link to the live stream. They can do that. I think as teachers, especially working with gifted, one of the things we need to do is say, what would be the most concise instruction I could give for this assignment right now? And say to students, all right, the TLDR is, you are going to do X, Y, Z. If you want more instruction on how to do that, that's what I'm going to do now. If you feel like that's sufficient, go knock yourself out. That is a form of compacted instruction. So in differentiation, we have tiering and we have compacting. Tiering, we're all on the same learning. Compacting is for kids who have either already mastered it or can master it more quickly than average. And so then what we can do for them is have them spend less time in the assignment, right? So they don't need quite as much time. And a TLDR for instructions is a good way to do that, right? So my suggestion here is that teachers do a better job of identifying what is the minimum amount of information needed for the highest ability kids in my class to do this assignment. That is a TLDR. Give that, maybe even in writing, and then give the oral instructions and additional help for everybody who needs that. It is not fair to punish kids for not listening to instructions not meant for them and are way overkill by saying that they weren't paying attention. It's like, well, no, they weren't paying attention because it wasn't worth paying attention to. Like, it was too boring. Like, we were waiting too long. It was like, it might have been, it's like there were 3 good cookies in the box. It's like when you get a mixed assortment of candy and you dig through and pick out the ones that you want, right? Like, I don't want to eat the whole bag of jelly beans. I don't like the black ones. So, man, I am on one tonight. Okay, so, and I just had salad for dinner. Like, this is just, there's no reason for it. But that's my suggestion there. All right, question 3, acceleration K1. Want to accelerate those kids out of kinder and into first grade. All right, here's the question. I'm dealing with 2 different cases in my school district. Both students are female kindergartners whose parents wanted them to skip directly to first grade before school even started this year. 100%, I'm here for it. Do it. We have a protocol in place involving data collection, interventions, yawn, right? All right. Parents are pressing to have this process done by break so they can move up to first grade when we return in January. Friends, I'm just addressing it now because I had major surgery and didn't do my office hours. Okay, so here is the question. Oh, and thank you so much to people who reached out. I am doing much better. I can walk in a shoe now, kind of. All right, here's the question. How do I explain to the teachers and the principals that acceleration is not a bad thing for these 2 students? The principals in particular are dead set against it because of the social emotional aspect. I know what the research says because I've read up on this topic a lot. How do I reassure them and myself that grade acceleration won't be a mistake? This is supposed to be a video. It doesn't play, apparently. Can I Google that for you? I'm not saying this to the person who asked the question. I'm saying this to the principals and the other teachers who are opposed to the acceleration. If you are an educator, if you are a certified educational professional, and you have not taken the time to do even the most cursory look at what the research says about acceleration, and by cursory, I mean 10 minutes to look at what the research says about acceleration, you do not belong in a classroom. You do not belong running a campus. Why? Acceleration is one of the most well-researched pedagogical tools in all of education. And the research shows it is almost universally positive. But in addition to that, there are things that you can do. For example, okay, now this is what I would suggest to this person. Go get 5 key points from either A Nation Empowered, A Nation Deceived, whatever, but either one. A Nation Deceived came out first. A Nation Empowered came out second. This is all the research from the Bell and Blank Center, the Iowa Center for Acceleration, the University of Iowa. They are so good. They are the best in the world at all of this research. They make it available for free. You don't even need database access. Here's what's weird. There is no other thing in education where the research shows that it is such a positive thing and the attitude of most educators is against it. Nothing approaches this. And yet we swallow stuff that's terrible, like PBIS. We're like all on board the PBIS train, even though there's tons of research that shows it's terrible. And we won't accelerate kids, even though it works. And this is what I don't understand. It saves districts money. If it costs a district 10 grand to educate a kid for a year, if we accelerate 10 kids in a district, we just save the district $100,000. We could hire a teacher and all the extra costs associated with, like pay their salary and other stuff for that. Accelerate some kids and hire more teachers. Like, this makes no sense to me. Use the Iowa acceleration scale that I know I have right here. The Iowa acceleration scale. You can buy this book. You buy the book, and then you get the little things with it, and you can give this to students. And there's like questions, and you fill them out. I know it doesn't, wait. Okay, there's questions, and you fill them out. And when you know how to do it, there's like a little guidebook, and it tells you how to score it, and it gives you like a 360 view of the student. And you need the Iowa acceleration scale, because that's how you assure them that the world isn't going to end. But here's my argument about this. Here's my argument. Well, and I'll say the last thing here. It needs to come from higher up, right? It shouldn't be that if a student ends up on a campus where that campus administrator happens to have spent 10 minutes reading about it, that then they can have best practices. But if they end up at a lazy principal, I should probably not say lazy, but intentionally deliberate, I don't see any way. I do not see any way to make it less harsh than that, because I firmly believe it is one of the greatest travesties of justice against gifted kids. And I'm grateful to Danny, because apparently, like, I am singing her song right now. But she's posting in comments like, amen, right? Why is there so much pushback? 2 reasons. Number one, we're too caught up in the social emotional side. Too caught up. That's what that question said, right? That question said, the question said, they're worried. See here, they're dead set against it because of the social emotional aspect. Okay, two answers to that. Number one, they're not going to fit in any better in the wrong grade, right? They don't fit. If they really belong cognitively in first grade and you've got them in kindergarten, they're not going to have any better social emotional experience in the grade that wasn't the right cognitive fit for them. So that's just silliness. Number two, there is no justification for refusing to meet the needs, the cognitive educational needs of a gifted student, because of a fear that they may not work out socially, emotionally. So I know this, all my kids accelerated, and one of them very radically. And a lot of people were worried, like, he's not even really going to drive in high school. I think they thought he wasn't going to get a prom date, right? Like, it's so stupid. And here's the thing. There's no way to put this on the other shoe. Would we ever say to a student with an IEP for special education that we're like, oh, you know what? This thing would be the best thing educationally for them, but we're not going to do it because we don't think he will get along with people. That would be a violation of federal law. You would have an OCR complaint before you could even like close the meeting. So we do it to gifted kids, and we don't do it to anyone else. But even if you're worried about that, the Iowa acceleration scale looks at that, because you don't want to accelerate kids into failure. A lot of gifted girls do not need kindergarten. A lot of them. A lot of gifted girls don't need kindergarten. Why do I say girls instead of boys? Because if you haven't been in kindergarten lately, all you need to do is remember what your second grade experience was like. And that is what kindergarten is like right now. So kindergarten, heavy reading, writing, not really developmentally appropriate for boys. Reading is a fine motor skill. Fine motor skills in boys develop more slowly, gross motor skills more quickly. So a lot of gifted girls probably don't need kindergarten. Then we end up with a situation where we have a bunch of kids who are like, all the girls are sick. Anyway, whatever. It does create some logistical issues. Danny's asking, why do districts push back? One is they haven't taken the time to learn about it. Number two, they're too concerned about the social emotional aspect. And number three, I think I said I was just going to do two, but I'm going to give you the third because it's really the most important, which is that the third reason is that our society in general is just overly obsessed with egalitarianism. We're overly obsessed with everything being equal. And it does not serve us, because we feel like if we admit that some kids have different needs at school, not in order to be brought up to where the on level is, but rather to be able to be able to be brought up to where they can be, that somehow that's a form of cheating, of arrogance, of skipping ahead, of like, it's not fair, it's not right, and that's not who we are. It's that, knocking tall poppies kind of thing. That's why districts push back. Districts push back because of bias against gifted kids in general. That's why they push back against acceleration, because of an entrenched bias and ignorance of the needs of gifted students. All right, I am taking no prisoners tonight. All right, last question, but this one's a doozy. All right, this question came to me from a person in my Depth of Complexity course. And she said, there was some pre-stuff. Then she says, as a class, we've explored the human body system and the system of animal classification, right? So kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, that. We've done work with generalizations. We have about 45 minutes a day or a week dedicated to this study. For the remainder of the school year, I wanted to give the students an opportunity to explore a system of their choice. Examples include solar system, transportation system, sewer system, coding, blah, 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 blah. Their choices are unlimited. I want them to have time to read and learn about that system, research, have elements of depth of complexity to engage them in deep thinking, and I want them to share their findings with others so we can learn so much more about all these other systems and how they function. Do you feel there's value in this? I would love any direction you can give me. Constructive, brutal, direct feedback is good with me. I love this person already, because that's really all I do. Like every now and then, somebody will ask me my opinion on something, I'll give it, and they'll be like, wow, that was kind of harsh. And I'm like, do you watch the show? Like, do you know who I am? All right. I am very willing to put the work in, and I'm also integrating so many things I'm learning from your course throughout all the areas of my day to prepare the students better for this. All right. So far, great. Love it, love it, love it. My coworkers have been big on asking students to research, have headings, specific note-taking, etc. I would love to know your thoughts on this too. Am I just trying to fit that in because that's their practice and belief, or is there value there along with the possibilities of creating something that works better, such as with such young kids, with trying to get to the thinking we want? These are second and third graders. Okay. Her question continues. Some of my thoughts are needing something to drive their research with such broad topics. Would a good task statement do this? How might I write all of these task statements? Or would I have third graders assist with this through a conference after building some background knowledge? I have about 12 students each day to work with. I think I love the think map thingies, graphic organizers with task statements as well. Everything hurts and I'm dying. I say this, I wish you could see this move. The reason I say that is not because of what she wrote. I love her question. It's what she sent me that she uses with this, and that like she's found that other people have done. I don't think she made this. And that is what makes me want to die. So I want to show you this. I'm going to show you what she's using now. And I'm probably going to comment on it as we go through because it's long, but then I'm also going to give some follow-up at the end. So first they watch this. What do you see? What if we look deeper and even deeper? So far, I'm okay. I'm okay right now. I'm fine with this. I love that idea. Like we go deeper, like right here on the surface, but if we go deeper, we'll find cool stuff. I'm fine with that. Love it. And then it all goes south. Because right here, once you have this much stuff on a slide, I probably shouldn't hold the wand like this because I'm going to end up with that. Anyway, I don't have any visual processing disorders. I do not have dyslexia. I do not have dysgraphia. I do not have anything other than sometimes overly harsh criticism. But I don't have any language or learning disorder. And yet I look at this and I can't even process this. Like, it is too busy. It's just way, way, way too busy. And it just gets worse from here. How do we go deeper? And it's like too much. Again, too much. There's like, it's too broken up. There's not enough. The pictures are too small. It's too much. I'm overwhelmed, and I'm just getting more and more overwhelmed. And then, are you beginning to see what we mean by depth? No, I'm not, especially if I'm 7 or 8 years old. No, this is too much. They should be taught about depth and complexity separately from this. We're not going to do, okay. We're not going to teach a bunch of new elements of depth and complexity in a learning experience. Remember, with depth and complexity, you're going to combine already learned material with a new prompt, or a existing prompt they already know with new material. All right. And then, oh my gosh, it just keeps going, right? How many elements of depth and complexity are they being expected to use? This is just too much. I'm so overwhelmed. Like, I can't. Oh my gosh. All of these are good questions. Like, individually, these are good questions. How is the ocean floor changing? How is the focus of ocean exploration change? Yeah, I'm fine with all of that. One, second or third grade, and I've taught third grade. I know what third graders can handle. They can't handle this. And not that they're not smart enough. It's just too much. It's too much for me. And I have I'm in I don't know what grade. I have 2 master's degrees. What's that? 20th grade? 30th grade? I don't even know. All right. Okay. I can't. Like, it's just too much. And partly it's like 1995 called, and it wants its slides back. There's some of that going on here too. All right. So this is just too long. This is just too much. Okay. So that's one problem. Oh gosh. All right. Then, so the kids get that as an introduction. And then here's where here's what they're going to do. I can't. I guess these are the possibilities. Okay. It's a lot like this, just a lot. And then again, 1995. But again, we've got this kind of weirdness going on. And here we've got this system, but system, I've got an issue with just saying system and putting rules here and then I don't understand what this rules icon is doing here. What is a system? System is pattern and rules, but system is like that. That's going to be one of the universal things. Okay. I don't understand what they're doing. I feel like they just copied this from some depth and complexity thing. And this, I don't think this was made by the person who sent in the question. I think she's using what she was given. But they found this somewhere that someone did with depth and complexity, and I don't like it. I don't like it because it's too vague. The pictures are doing nothing for it. It's not helpful. It's not deep enough. And whenever, like, everything that we've seen so far of this cannot help but be shallow, because if we go into even one of these slides, how long could I spend looking at these 4 questions? An entire class period. So to me, it feels weird to say this is all about depth. So let me introduce it to you in the most shallow of all possible ways. Like, this is just, it's too confusing. It's too much. All right. And then we just keep going. Okay. This, I love a good looking slide as much as the next guy, but this kind of design on here is just getting in the way. This is way too much text on the slide. Even small things like having this extra space up here. This is too much. This is too much for a third grader. This is too much. And then this, I don't get this. This is not, no. This is a universal concept. Systems is a universal concept. And so they're trying to put a bunch of stuff about universal concepts at the bottom. It's not working. I don't get it. What is the most fun, creative way for you to share your learning? And that's just a misunderstanding of what creativity is, right? Creativity is thinking, not necessarily doing. And creativity can be fun, but it doesn't necessarily mean like, instead of a poster, put it in a hot air balloon, right? And so I feel like this is just not enough guidance. And then this, oh my gosh, it just keeps going. And then here we get crazy. So I've written on the website about making choice menus better. And this is one of the issues I have. Like, this is just too shallow. There's no rubrics here. And this is differentiation by interest of choice, but it makes it look cooler than it actually is. Okay, so Lisa, how are you going to fix it? How are you going to fix it? I loved this question because for two reasons. Number one, anybody who says, come at me with your feedback, they're my friend. Number two, someone who's like in the course and learning and wanting to apply it, I'm here for that. Number three, she already has this inkling that it's not quite working. And because of that, it's helpful. I need to turn around to get something because I want to recommend something to her. Okay. All right. So I love all of this for that, because I do feel that in all of this chaos, there is something of value. So let me go to the next thing. Here are her questions. Here are my answers to her questions. All right. And these are really for me to help remember what I was going to say. All right. First of all, is this worth it? Maybe. I don't yet know what's the goal. Like, is the goal just that students will get a better understanding of systems? And if that is the goal, why is that the goal? Is that the universal concept that through which all of their other teachers are looking at learning that year? Or is it what you're going to do in your class that year? If so, then yeah, do a deep dive into systems. Okay, pick a system and do a really deep dive into it. Yeah, I've seen schools where they do something like this, where a student starts researching something in kindergarten and they research it for 12 years. That same topic. I met a kid who was in 10th grade and had been researching apples since kindergarten. And that kid, seriously, he basically needed a PhD in apples because he knew everything about apples. Like, I could not believe what he knew about apples. And it was fascinating to listen to him. So yeah, it's great. But it's not being done well the way it is right now. So let me give you some suggestions. Number one, you need this book, Independent Investigation Method. This book I recommend in my differentiation course. This book, I heard the authors speak at a conference. I kept my conference handout in my copy that I bought with my own allowance. A lot of books, not the ones right behind me, but the ones over that side that you guys can't see, a lot of those publishers send me to review. But this is one I bought with my own dang money. So what this book is it has like forms. I don't know. It has like forms that you can use, and it works K-12. And it has like the different forms that you can use to help students with independent study. And I feel it guides them through choosing a topic, setting goals, doing the research, organizing that research, evaluating their goals, producing a product, and then presenting what they produced. So they need to understand there's a process to this kind of thing and have it be evaluated. So my number one recommendation would be to say, scrap all the PowerPoint stuff and move to independent investigation. Independent investigation method. It used to be published by, first the authors published it. I bought it when it was them, Active Learning Systems. Then it got bought out. They sold it to Proofrock, and Proofrock just got bought out by Routledge. But you could probably find a used copy on Amazon or whatever. But it is really good. IIM, or Independent Investigation Method. So 2 recommendations tonight: IO Acceleration Scale and Independent Investigation Method, both of which I've bought with my own money. Okay, so I would use Independent Investigation Method rather than the PowerPoints. Number 3, make this way more narrow. Like, having the kids have basically no constraint, like you can do whatever and you can make it look like whatever. And if any of you have read the Beezus and Ramona books, there's one of the books, I think it's Ramona Quimby, age 8, where Ramona's mom takes away all of her coloring books because she wants her to be more creative. And so she just gives her blank paper. And Ramona, instead of being encouraged to be more creative by the lack of constraint, is actually like frozen by it. And that is a whole thing of creativity, is constraint. I just read a story today about how the musician Brian Eno, in order to create more creativity in studio musicians, would only let them work in half the studio, cut the instruments that they were able to access by half, and it increased their creativity. So constraint is a huge part of creativity. So if we want them using some good creative thinking, a little more constraint will be helpful rather than the sky's the limit, just do whatever you want. It's like going to a restaurant and they come and take your order, but they haven't given you a menu. It's like, I don't know what I want. I don't know. I don't even know what the choices are, right? Okay, it needs to be way more guided. And you can do that with IIM. Part of that will mean it needs to be broken down into steps. And those steps need to have frequent check-ins. So like, by this day, we're going to choose our topic. By this day, we're going to do this. By this day, we're going to do that. And have rubrics for the small pieces. So a rubric for how they chose their topic, a rubric for how they did their research, right? And you need to have a clear idea of what a good one would look like and show that to students. So if you're going to show them something like this, they need to see examples of what good ones would look like for all of those things. And then the other thing I would say is to answer the question about whether like focusing on taking notes a certain way or doing all of that is worth it. My answer would be no. My answer would be no. And the reason my answer is no is primarily that note taking is only helpful for the purpose of organizing. And when I first started teaching, like taking notes a certain way on your index cards, we actually graded how the students took their notes. And I wouldn't do that now. And the reason is that the purpose of the notes is to be able to organize your thoughts, I think, and to be able to use them later. So I think that one of the things that would be worth doing is to have them be shown a few different ways of recording their research and letting them choose. But IIM has work pages for them to write that down. So that's one way. You could show them like index cards. You could show them some tech tools where they could record stuff. Show them a few different ways of recording and then let them choose. But I also feel like, keep in mind, these are second and third graders. And so I say stay appropriate. And stay appropriate for them. The IIM method is good for K-12. They've got resources in here for K-12. My copy is too old to have this, but the new copies have a digital versions as well. So you don't have to print it all, but you can. And so I hope that what I'm saying is helpful. I like the idea of that first PowerPoint that's like the go deeper, but the only part of it I would use would be this part. Let me go back here. The only part of that whole PowerPoint I would use would be, I would not use any of this. It's just giving me a headache. Okay, so I mean, you can use this if you want this, okay. And I see what they're trying to do, right? They're putting blocks of color behind the words so it's easier to read the words. That's fine when it's like one thing. Even this I'm okay with because at least it's just labeling. And that I'm fine up to that point. I wouldn't do this. Is where it's getting chaotic. If this was your question, actually, I'm going to send you an email to make sure that you saw this and that it was answered. If this is your question and you still have questions about my answer, please reach out again. Now, those were all the questions I had for tonight. If anybody else, anything, Danny's thrown some comments in on the Facebook. I'm glad for that because I often wonder, like, should I stream on Facebook and YouTube or just YouTube? And it turns out that like hundreds of people end up watching on Facebook and far fewer on YouTube, which is interesting. So I see Danny's there on Facebook. So any other questions, let me know. If you, again, you probably are signed up for the email list if you're in this, because how else would you hear about it? But if you're not, sign up for the email at giftedguru.com/subscribe, because that's where I send out like all the freebies, all the discounts on stuff, all the, oh, you know what I'm allowed to say today? No, I'm not allowed to say it till midnight, I think. Okay. Anyway, I was going to tell you something. Watch your email, right? That I put the good stuff in the email. And if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. But if you subscribe to the email, I send email out and you can write me back the questions. That's how I get questions. So I want to thank you guys so much for participating and coming tonight, and for coming to my TED Talk about acceleration, especially. And I just can't say enough about how just educate yourself. Just educate yourself. But I mentioned something earlier. It has to come from top down. It can't be at the mercy of one teacher or administrator. The district attitude towards acceleration needs to be in school board policy, and the superintendent or assistant superintendent who is over curriculum instruction must be educated about acceleration. And that is where I would start. It is just an exercise in futility to try to start at the classroom teacher and campus level. You've got to start higher up in the school district and get them to drink the Kool-Aid, and then it all flows downhill from there with board policy. So persuade the board. Go speak to the school board. Have like a 5-minute presentation on acceleration. That's where I would go. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. I don't see any more questions. So I want to thank you again so much for participating tonight. And I'll look forward to seeing you next month at the office hours.